everybody, this is Jason Artiga and this is another episode of Cinema Macabro. Today's video is going to be a review of the 1981 slasher film that was co-produced, written, and co-directed, possibly, by Harvey Weinstein, The Burning. This review is going to also be a discussion on, was The Burning an allegory to Weinstein's behavior? We're not going to get political here, folks, but this is going to be an interesting episode.
Harvey Weinstein, producer and Miramax mogul, producer of countless films and creator of careers. I mean, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, Luc Besson. A lot of directors got their American start, whether they were like foreign directors or like American-born directors, got their start at Miramax during the 90s. I mean, you had directors like Robert Rodriguez, whose film was bought from Miramax, El Mariachi, and he made countless other films with Miramax. Unfortunately, somebody like Guillermo del Toro had a bad start with Miramax and never worked with Harvey Weinstein again. Harvey Weinstein is pretty much, you can see the good and the bad. You can see the bad where a lot of films were released from Hong Kong to in China only to be cut to death for American releases. But then there's the worst, which is the recent rape allegations and sexual assault by, Harvey Weinstein. Now, I'm not going to get political over here, and I'm not going to explain the whole Me Too movement. I'm a horror aficionado, and I try to stay politically neutral. However, I wanted to talk about his first produced film. It was a horror film called The Burning, which he co-wrote with his brother and other writers, but it was mostly Harvey Weinstein. See, The Burning is an interesting film, especially what's going on in the media with Harvey Weinstein now, currently. And The Burning, to me, is one of my favorite films. I discovered this film accidentally on a BitTorrent. Actually, a friend of mine spoke to me in a bar and told me about this film called The Burning. And he was like, oh, it's better than Friday the 13th. It was written the same time as Friday the 13th, which Harvey Weinstein claims to have done. He claims that he wrote a horror film before Friday the 13th that had a similar plot. Around 1978, he wrote The Burning, and he pretty much got funding to produce this film in 1981. He had a director, Tony Maylam, direct the film. His cast included a lot of veteran TV and movie actors of the 80s. You had Brian Matthews, Leah Ayres, Brian Backer, Larry Joshua. You had Jason Alexander, Ned Eisenberg, Fisher Stevens, who was like 15 from the movie Hackers, and you also had Holly Hunter. You would have to look closely for her because she had a small part. So the film was shot in Western New York, and they managed to get Tom Savini, the king of horror makeup effects, to not do the sequel of Friday the 13th to work on The Burning. So they shot revenge on this mean bastard of a groundskeeper named Cropsy. Cropsy is pretty much drunk, sleeping in his cabin, and one of the kids decides to pull out this severed head of a corpse from a nearby cemetery and place it by his bed. He placed it on his bedstand. When the kid's wrapping the window, Cropsy gets scared. He wakes up to the head of the corpse and pretty much knocks a lamp near some flammable liquid, and the whole cabin bursts on fire. The kids run away, and Cropsy jumps in the river in time, but it's too late. 99% of his body has been burned, and he's in a burn center for years in New York City. When Cropsy gets out, he seeks a prostitute, and they both go up to her room. Cropsy knows that, he's burnt, so he wears a long overcoat and a big hat. When he undresses, the woman who plays the prostitute gets scared, and because of her rejection, Cropsy kills her in a brutal fashion. which starts Cropsy's whole plan of revenge to get back in that camp and start a murder spree. We are then introduced by Alfred, played by Brian Becker, who's pretty much an awkward and creepy kid. We're introduced by his character. He's pretty much in the girl shower room looking at a girl washing herself naked, and he gets caught and runs out of there. The camp counselor, played by Brian Matthews, catches Alfred and yells at him. And this sets off a bully, played by Larry Joshua, Glazer, who picks on Alfred because he basically saw the woman of interest nude, his woman of interest nude, who he's been trying to court throughout the whole movie. Alfred gets yelled at and is told not to be a recluse and actually mingle with the other kids. Where we're then introduced to Jason Alexander and the other camp counselors. Jason Alexander in the story, he's pretty funny, and he gets Brian to get revenge on Glazer. They shoot him in the ass with a BB gun, embarrassing him, in front of the woman of interest, and having him like fall in the water. And Glazer wants revenge. Glazer is relentless at bullying Alfred because he's creepy, and pretty much he's a bully that bullies him based on his own shortcomings, which I'm gonna explain a little later. During this time, Cropsy arrives at the camp, murdering all the kids one by one. And pretty much Alfred sees Cropsy's burnt face through a window, and nobody believes him because he's deemed a creepy kid. And I gotta say, the burning has a high kill count. Most of the actors in the film, I'm gonna say a good 70 to 80% are pretty much camp kids who are like 12, from the ages of 12 to like 18 years old. So when kids get killed in this movie pulls no punches. The film has a really good soundtrack by Rick Wakeman that actually brings the suspense to this film, and it adds to the dread. We get like synth heartbeats and the use of the aggravator on the synth, and everything about this film has pretty much a good atmosphere due to the soundtrack. There's a scene where Alfred, played by Brian Becker, is running from Cropsy, and like this kid has like the most awkward fucking ape-like run. And what makes the scene work out and doesn't become a complete comedy is Rick Wakeman's great use of synths while he's running actually makes this scene really good and really suspenseful for that scene. Now, Brian Matthews made a good lead, and he's pretty much the straight man of the film. He's pretty much like the alpha male who's not a pig. He's not the male pig. And compared to like all the males pretty much are pieces of shit. I mean, all right, let's start with Brian Becker's character, Alfred. Okay, Alfred is the voyeur, and he's pretty much a perv. And you see this in the first 5 minutes of the film. And then you have Glazer, the bully. Now, remember what I told you about shortcomings?
Shit. That's all. Is it?
I'm sorry, Sally. I don't know what happened.
It's okay.
It'll be better next time, baby. Trust me.
Trust me, baby.
Sally? You're cold, huh?
Yes.
Well, he's pretty much a bully, maybe because of his sexual hang-up, maybe because he can't really pleasure the woman that captured his interest. And then you got Jason Alexander, who has the raunchy locker room humor.
So, you girls all set for the trip tomorrow? Nothing I can get you? Life jacket? Spermicide? Oh! Hey, you gotta be prepared. You know what I mean, huh? Oh, God.
He's absolutely hilarious in it. It's more of the honest guy. Out of all the guys, I'm not going to say he's a pig. I would say that he's more like the true, like, guy that you hang out with. He's absolutely funny in this film. And then you got Ned Eisenberg, who plays Eddie.
Eddie.
Come on, you're gonna start that again now?
Cut it out.
Why'd you come out here then?
You come!
Get the fuck out of my face.
Characters in there. And you can see where maybe he had an awkward sexual hang up when he was, you know, in the 70s. And you can see this by some of the characters, like Brian Becker's character Alfred the Voyeur, or whatchamacallit, Ned Eisenberg's character Eddie, who's a borderline rapist and pretty much a misogynist. And you see this correlation with what's happening in the news with Harvey Weinstein. I mean, it's not to be funny, but it actually makes this movie more rewatchable and adds the creepiness factor to a 10, because now you're pretty much seeing what is, you know, all these male pig characters is pretty much an allegory to Harvey Weinstein's behavior towards women. And you can see it in the film. I mean, there's a lot of, like, beautiful women in this film get killed. They get killed brutally in this film. And it's sort of like, you know, for the exception of the main character, who's actually the straight man, you know, all these guys are, you know, are pretty much the personas of Harvey Weinstein, and you actually can see it. And nobody, this film actually flew over everybody's head. The film has lots of TNA, and is it a good movie? Oh, I think it's one of the best horror films I ever saw. And it actually makes it even better now with these allegations come to light, because you're like, holy shit, this guy was a creep from the beginning, making this film even creepier. So there's a little bit of Harvey Weinstein's persona in this film, you know, and I'm not condoning what he did. I think he's a piece of shit for doing it, but it's just it just makes this film rewatching, you know, easier. Now, it's not the first time a director or writer wrote a film or directed a movie to be an allegory to his life. I mean, if you look at On the Waterfront by Elia Kazan, and not to compare an Academy Award winning film to a B-movie horror film written by a creep, but Elia Kazan, get into allegories of movies of directors who are pretty much putting their own life in there. Elia Kazan wrote On the Waterfront because what happened to him during the House of Un-American Activity communist trials, where you know, he was forced to testify against his own friends and label them as communists. So On the Waterfront was an allegory to his guilt, whereas The Burning is an allegory to Harvey Weinstein's pretty much awkwardness and misogynistic tendencies towards women. Now, the acting is pretty good. Brian Matthews, who was pretty much a veteran actor, and Leah Iris, she was pretty much, you know, her career took off with this movie. Brian Becker was in a couple of movies like Police Academy, still working now. Jason Alexander, hello. I mean, fucking Seinfeld, you know. And you got Ned Eisenberg, who has been in countless films. I mean, the guy has charisma as an actor. And this film, when it got made, it was made a little years after the serial killer who killed children named Cropsey at Staten Island, in this place in Staten Island. So they took the name Cropsey to make it for the, you know, they named the main killer for this film Cropsey. The makeup effects in this movie are fucking brutal. And when I tell you this, you see kids, gore, everything. Like, a pair of shears comes a long way in this film. And like, you see, I mean, the makeup effects, it's Tom Savini, and it's like Tom Savini at his prime. And the burnt makeup effects to Cropsey is, you can see where Resident Evil 2 stole from this movie for the look of Nemesis. They're pretty much the same. And I like this film. I really like the Burning, and it was lost at one time. The Burning had a VHS release, and after that it became out of print in VHS for years. So for many years, like, you would see copies floating by. There was not that many film prints of the film. So when somebody told me about the film, it was a friend, my friend Nick, told me at the Subway Inn about this film that was like very much better than Friday 13th and written before it. So I was like, holy shit, I got to see this film. It was years later I saw it in a BitTorrent site called Tracker 3 Torrents, which straight up was dealt with cult films that were never really got a DVD transfer. And we're talking about the time before Blu-ray. So when I downloaded the film, I was like, wow, this is such a good film. And the download I had was from a Japanese Laserdisc. So for many years, this film, a lot of people were talking about it because they saw it on BitTorrent. And this film was actually part of my lecture that I gave at LIC Fear Film Festival that I did with my girlfriend. So the thing with The Burning is it eventually got a Blu-ray release, and the way they did it was they found out that Quentin Tarantino had a transfer. He actually had an original film, 35 millimeter film print of the film that was actually Alamo Draft House, I think, borrowed from him. And this distributors, they bought, they rented it, and they pretty much did an awesome digital transfer to the film.
Now, guys, if you like this video, please leave a like or a comment in the comment box below. And guys, please subscribe. Put the word out for Cinema Macabro. I can use any help I can. I'm going to need a new office chair for this show and possibly some new equipment. So guys, if you feel like you want to donate anything from like an LED panel to like anything experimental used for podcasts, believe me, I'm willing to test out your product. Any little help helps, and I like to give back. So guys, I'll see you guys at the next episode.